Hello everybody. I'm just waiting for this to go online here. There's a few seconds of delay here and there. I'm gonna actually, here we go. It just looks like we're now live. So we're gonna get rid of things like that. And what we have here, we have something pretty fun. We've got the brand new Thenn Warriors. These are from Song of Ice and Fire here. And conveniently we've got some card art that really does match up pretty well with one of the figures. We're going to be working on the whole unit though, including, we'll probably even do the Chosen of Steer. Let's see, that is your right here. So really looking nifty. We are going to use a combination of Winsor Newton oil paints here and these Mig Ammo Oilbrushers. We've got that laid out in the palette right here. I think you can see it in the palette cam there. This is, actually that's Payne's Gray. Again, regular, just standard Winsor Newton oil colors. Not a big deal. And here's some examples of, this was just last night, less than 24 hours ago. This is part of my army painting series right here. Obviously we got the Mountains Men. That was painted in basically the exact same colors as this. Here's another buddy of his. So you can see they're fantastic for doing the non-metallics. But I've also painted free folk units in oils. I painted my flayed men in oils. So here we got our cave dweller savages. And you can see how the basing is basically the theme of this. We got snow, skulls, blood, because you got the whole followers of bone, all that sort of stuff. We're working on that unit too. Now here is the base that's in progress, or the multi-base, I should say. I'm just doing a little quick review on that for you guys. And if you're wondering where all those skull piles and everything are, well, those are from Green Stuff World. You have these plates, and they're called crunch times. Now this particular plate you see right here with all the broken shields, I'm actually using that for my Boltons. And let's see if I can find a couple of them here. Let's see. Just looking for some guys that might have some shields on them. Ah, here we go. So, and this is going to be another thing, your blackguard here. This is another, yep, we have blackguard here, so we're going to be working on that tutorial also. And like I said, those are really nifty from Green Stuff World. Oh, and this is the other thing too. So, here, let's check out some of these larger skulls like that. Here again, another sheet from Green Stuff World. They have skulls, flaming skulls, giant skulls. You know, the whole thing with the giants and the free folk, that just seems to be a thing. So we're going to keep going with that. Now, I do want to talk about another important item here, and that is your white spirits. We're not using paint thinner. Paint thinner is just all kinds of, it's bad for you, it's bad for the paint. White spirits, when it says odorless, it really means odorless. It's gentler on you, and it's real gentle on the paint. So Speedbow is your company name. Mona Lisa is sort of the interior brand name. And that's what I've got in my little cup right over here. I'm going to put some more in a larger container off to the side here. Now I'm going to go see if I can bring up my chat here real quick. Give me a second and see what's going on. Hey there, first, last. You are first. I haven't seen any of it in person. I've seen, I think, kind of the same purple renders that you have. We'd love to see more than just the purple renders. Heck, I don't even have Tully Cav here. Or what's what else? Or the Poor Fellows. You know, me, the Lannister guy, with no Poor Fellows. I'm going to show you the difference also now between the oil brushers and your regular paint. So I'm going to put some of this out here. And you can see this is very much the consistency of miniature paint. Just right out of the container here. And look at how nice and thin that is. Now you can make these yourself. I've definitely made that. But here, just by comparison, I'll show you. So this is a bit more like peanut butter. You see that consistency there? I'll just put some of this out here. We're going to need it anyways. That is the one thing you got to get used to here, is that you're going to be mixing colors, ironically not on the palette, more so on the miniature. And we're still going to be using our same old number 8 round craft brushes here. And I'm just going to get myself a brush going here. I'm going to put my cards over there. I've got the picture references up for you guys on the screen, but they sort of get covered a little bit. So here we go. We got ourselves a brush. And we're just going to get right into this. We are going to take some of that umber, some of that Payne's gray. Now, for those of you that are familiar with me doing my oils, you know that I used to do, well, still do, I did more of a pre-wash where I really thinned this down, made it almost liquid, and then wiped it away with the makeup sponge. We're not going to do that. Let's grab one of our regular line troops here. And what I'm going to do is just try and work in some of this color everywhere. Because I just grabbed some of the yellow ochre color. You're also going to find out that a little bit goes a long way. Oh, and hello from Chicago. We have, I think that is probably the first person from Finland, so you are the first. And I hope that it's not really hot there the way it was last summer. That was and that whole seemed like every month a new record was being set up there for temperature. Let's see. Oh, really interested. I wonder what the unset. Yeah, well, I wouldn't think about dragons for that anytime soon. I mean, maybe they'll do them, but it's just, I don't know how practical it is. It might have to be some more of an off-board type of a thing. Maybe more of a tactics board or a card. Something like that comes in. So you can see we're just taking a little bit of this and we're just working it around here. Now if I feel that it is necessary, I always have makeup sponge here. And look what happens when I take some away. The difference is we're just not doing this quite so in quite such a liquid fashion as we did before. It's just a little bit of a change. Now here I am going to switch to more of a Payne's gray. And you'll see why, especially here over your armor surfaces, because when other lighter colors hit that, it's actually going to tint them a bit towards the bluish gray. Another thing with the oil paints is, well, you just have to settle for it looking like a whole lot of nothing for a while. Because believe me, those two nifty mountains men, they looked exactly like this. After the first 15-20 minutes, there just wasn't much to look at. But what I'm going to do is we'll focus in on this guy and we'll try and maybe do a couple other ones. Another thing you have to get used to with the oil paints is that you have to be really aware of how thick or thin your paint is at the time. Now, I have to be aware that this is mostly relatively thicker paint because thick paint sticks to thin paint. Thin paint sticks to thick paint. Thick on thick, thin on thin leads to, you might as well just take a makeup sponge and kind of wipe the paint off because that is what's going to happen. So you always have to be thinking in your head, now if the paint is dry, it doesn't matter. But if it's not dry and if it's wet, you have to be aware, like here, this paint is thinner. It is thinner than it is in other places. So I'm just going to throw some darker stuff down here just to get that out of the way. And let's maybe do a few little lighter colors here. We don't really do a lot of mixing on the palette. The mixing happens on the figure. It was a hot summer, it's cooling down. Yeah, here, there was the insane, what was the real feel of 120 degrees with the humidity here. Where I was doing painting demos in a garage, that was fun in a way that was interesting. So I'm glad that you are not being too persecuted by heat right now. Hey there, Michael, how's it going? So see how this color changes? But you can see how we're just letting that blend, and look at how dark that brush is. Just turn this around, look at that. You have lighter paint. This is another one of those things of the oddities of oil paint, that it picks up the colors that are already there. If the paint underneath is wet, every time your brush hits that paint, it's going to pick up what's there. Look at how dark that's gotten. Now what you can do is either use the other side, like this, or you clean off your brush. And by clean it off, I mean you're just taking a paper towel, something like that, and you just wipe it. We are not doing any kind of complete deep clean or whatever. And you can see I like those number 8 rounds because they sort of form that filbert brush. But this is the fun of oils, is that you can do some real nifty blending like so. You just can't really do this with other paints. And I can do this for as long as I really want to. There's a little bit of that, a little touch of that sky blue here. I'll watch what happens when it hits our shield. So it's already starting to transform that a little bit, but it's mixing with the paint that's there. We're not mixing on the palette so much as we are just directly mixing on the figure. And what I'm going to do is plop some of this lighter color on here. And I do mean just sort of plop it on there. And we're going to take ourselves another brush here. Let me get this where you can see it. There. And watch what happens as we just blend this away. That is the fun thing about oils. Let's do that again. Right over. See this edge here? And even that's pretty soft. But we can make it softer. Over here. Here. That is just the beauty of oil paints. You can take your time. Can do some nice blends like that. Think of how much work that would be to get all those different colors in there. We don't have to do that. Now let's get ourselves some browns in here. We have our blues in there. I'm just going to start to introduce some of this. I'm just going to look for some questions. Yeah, it's late. Well, good morning to you. Well, it's morning here. It is 2:08 a.m. Heck, this is it's almost an early start time. The only problem is, I think every day this week I've had maybe 3 hours of sleep. So that's going to be, if I if I stumble over words again, I think I've said this before, that is not drunkenness, that is just no sleep. Especially since ReaperCon is, I don't even want to think of the fact that in 1 week from today, it's wheels up at the airport to head off to Texas. Now, I am going to bring as much of this stuff as I can, which actually means packing it up in a box a day or two from now and sending it out to the factory. Because, yeah, I think you guys know just how much of this Song of Ice and Fire stuff I have, and, well, that's probably not the best to be bringing that on a plane. So all I'm going to do is just sort of a generic little flash tone color here. Let's just drop that right there on his face. A few other places here. If a color goes somewhere, it must go everywhere. And we'll just, in some areas, we let the paint sort of settle a little bit. In other areas, we just keep working. So here we're adding a little bit of our sky blue to our metal there. Gonna get a little bit of that non-metallic stuff. Oh, and Mig Ammo Oilbrushers do have metallic versions, which is really cool. I mean, that's just sweet, and it's way better than, because I've tried getting just regular paints that are so-called metallics, and yeah, that's not really super nifty. All right, I'm gonna get my blending brush again. Yeah, 9 o'clock. See, yeah, it's because I think London is 6 hours ahead of us, and pretty sure that, oh gosh, was it Melbourne is 13 or 12? Maybe it's 12 hours ahead of us, or 13. I can never quite remember sometimes. Yeah, let's get a little more of our metal color up here too. And I don't want that to have only a bluish gray tinge. I want to get a little bit of green in there, even a little bit of purple. I'm going to assume that we've got metal over here too. And you can see we're letting what's underneath mix and blend in with these new colors that we're dropping on. And little by little, it just starts to form into something. The main advantage of the oils is to be able to work on tons of figures at the same time. That is why I think this is my third or fourth army painting series for the Patreon page that is based on oils. Because it is the ideal thing for painting multiple figures at the same time. Because you can just go to, chill out, you can do something like this, leave it go for a while. Okay, we're gonna get some brighter stuff up here too. Again, this is time for our blending brush. And just makes that all nice and smooth, nice and easy. Now this way you don't have to, see, I don't have to worry about blending all these colors and trying to find just the right mixture for them or anything like that. It just kind of mixes itself. Now you don't have to paint the entire thing all in just one sitting where it's all completely wet the entire time. You could say, you know what, I'm going to do to a certain degree and then let it dry and then work on it. And I've done that. I've got some other Mountains Men figures from, because I got a couple of units going on where the figures have dried part of the way through. And actually, it's you can still do some really neat blending with oils even over dry oil paint. That's pretty cool. That is nifty when you do that. Gone for 3 minutes, and yeah, it happens fast with the oils, and it just doesn't take very long. And let's see, it was Gen Con. There was just so much conversation about oils, and people were asking, so what is it? What is it that makes those faster? What is it that can make it take like 75% less time than the same exact thing done in acrylics? And I thought about it long and hard, and then I started to look at my palettes, and this palette never really gets any messier than, say, something like that. Now let's take my regular palette here. This is my acrylic version. Here we go, just opening up the wet palette, and that. So I'm spending an awful lot of time. I must have painted thousands of miniatures on my palette doing acrylics. But with oils, you can see I spend very little time screwing around with the palette. I spend the vast majority of the time working on the miniature. That doesn't sound like a whole lot, especially if it's just a one-off figure. But now when you're talking about, well, typical Song of Ice and Fire army, let's just say 2 NCUs and 4 infantry combat units, you're already into the 50s there. And then you throw in a 5th, or if it's free folk and you maybe have 9 of them, Well, that's one of the reasons why this is my third Free Folk unit that's being done in oils. It also helps to, you got these sort of off-white colors. You've got the browns, the tans, earth tones. Well, why not let the oils just kind of do that mixing for you? Here, just kind of get some little bit of lighter colors in there. Let's get some other colors here on our handle. And as always, we have a little brush here to blend in some of that. How often you start a figure in oils? Actually, that was, when I thought I could only use oils for maybe half the figure tops. And I was doing bolt action stuff. And I started to figure out with oils, and it was Winter Americans. That was the very first unit I ever did with the oils. And I thought, well, if I just do the overcoats and maybe the boots and just some select areas, and that's all I ever do with it, hey, I'm gold. That'll help a lot. But then I started to realize that I could paint more of the figure, but I let it all dry, and I think I just took my same old Army Painter anti-shine and did a seal on the oils, and then just painted acrylics right over the top. It's never been a problem. I think I just did that actually recently with some figures that, oh my gosh, months ago. And by months, I mean 8 or 9 or 10 months ago. Had been painted with oils to a certain degree, and I just finished them off with acrylics because, well, that's what was there. That's all I had. And they had to be done. So, here, let's get some reddish brown in here now. It can be, as far as just from your perspective watching it, it can be a little difficult with the glossiness because, well, wet paint is glossy, and this is oils, and they're going to stay wet, so hence they will remain a little glossy. Now, as far as drying time goes, the Mig Ammo Oilbrushers, much to my shock, there was one time they dried in a matter of hours. Now, it could have been winter time, and maybe the air in the house was a little drier than usual. But yeah, I went back the next day thinking, oh, I'm going to do all this wet into wet stuff, and we're going to have fun, and it was all dry. Or about 99% dry. And I was really surprised. Wasn't expecting that at all. Not at all. Here we got some fur. Yeah, with all of this off-white of the fur and all the tans and browns and even throwing a little bit of greens and such on the clothes, which are hides and whatever. The oils can really let you blend in a hurry. And you can also do glazes. I'm going to show you that too. Maybe in a little bit. I might start a couple of other figures too, just to have those underway. Now let's get a little more of our reflected light going here, because we've got that snow that we want to mess around with there. And you can see as I do this, every brush stroke is going to pick up the color that's there. So that's an intentional scumbling there. If you want that brush to be there and stay there, well, that's it. You just got to leave it there. You grab your blending brush and then do something like that. If self-discipline, I guess, is going to be the key there. Definitely want to have that sense of, well, okay, I can only do this one stroke here, and then I got to leave it. See, I think I need some armor colors here. Now, I'd done so much with the thick paint there, it wasn't going to take any more thick paint. So I went over here to my white spirits, thinned it down, and now it covers no problem. The miniature will tell you if you need to start going thinner or thicker. It'll tell you really fast. You won't have to worry about that. Eventually, though, you'll go by instinct and you'll say, yeah, I need to thin this down. I've already got some really thick paint here. And yeah, with the skulls here, we're just going to let some of that just blend itself away. What's actually fun too is you can use smaller brushes also. There's nothing that says you can't. Maybe we'll screw around a little bit of skin tone here. All we're trying to do is set things up for some of those. I started calling them pin glazes, actually, I think, for those pin line or the pin washes. Yeah, actually, that's actually, so we got a piece of metal there. All right, good to know. We're just going to change that up a bit here. See, we're starting to get a little bit of more of the blue in there. And we're going to thin that down. We're just, again, using the white spirits. Every so often, I try to check the chat there, because questions are always welcome and always fun, because it contributes just more information to the whole experience overall. Here we go, get some of that trim of the fur there, but you can see how that's just mixing by itself. Here we're just gonna grab a little bit of the yellow ochre there. Have a few for weathering in tubes, but never did any. So how to start? I would pick figures that have actually something like this. See, there's a lot of open surfaces here, and there's lots of, you got the fur here. There's actually some good areas on this. So heck, a space marine wouldn't be the worst thing to try, because you have some large open surfaces there, but you also got some details. So that wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. And I'll show you in a second here. So obviously, I'm using the oil brushers, and we love our oil brushers, but here, let's grab this for you. This I got on Amazon, and I will just put a link to some of these things in the description here. So this is a set of 10 oil paints. Obviously, Winsor Newton. This right here, if I didn't have the oil brushers, I'd just still be using these. Basically, every color you're going to need is right here. And because you use so much less oil paint than you do acrylic paints, that set could just last me, and I'm talking about me, for years. So the miniature that you choose could have a pretty significant impact on how it is for you. I obviously was doing historicals. Like I said, Winter Americans, Winter Germans, Russians. Actually, it's Series 2 of my Patreon page. I'm on Series 12 now, because I add a little bit of that magenta here on the shield. And 3 of the series are in oils. We've got Morgul Knights. That was fantastic, because you had all of that, those dark colors, lots of grays and greens and purples all mixed together on the same figures. Maybe, I don't know, orcs, something like that. where you've got some interesting kind of non-human flesh tones that you might need to blend. Now, yeah, what the heck? Let's go for it. We are going to make ourselves a little bit of a wash. And with the vehicle painting, they call them pin washes, panel line washes, whatever. Oils have a really fantastic capillary action. That any acrylic paint, even those the contrast paints and stuff, that capillary action is not 2% of what this is. And watch what's going to happen here. I am just going to touch that right there, and you can see it it gets sucked right down into those crevices. We just touch it. That's all we're doing. Because if you try and do brush strokes and such, what's going to happen is you're just going to wipe away. It's almost like taking a cleaning solution, wiping your paint away. That's probably not what you're looking to do. So here we got this right here on his shoulder. You see, I stopped. Even now, I was tempted to try and go in there and start brushing things. Can't do that. Here on the fur, same thing. See, just these little dots. Look at that. See how that's spread out? There is no acrylic paint that does that. And Michael's probably familiar with that. Just smashing in paints and use the other brush to blend. Yeah, I had no idea. When I first did those Winter Americans, and they had obviously all different color jackets. Some were more brown, some were more gray. And when I was doing the Winter Russians, and I found myself just taking paint off the palette, sticking it on the figure with a brush, and then taking another brush and move it around. I said, "Whoa, wait a minute. This is one way to get 70 Russians done in a hurry." But not to have that same silly brown color over and over. I could make it a little more gray here, a little more greenish there, a little more burnt sienna there. So here, look at the difference. So we got this here that doesn't have any of those washes on there, but up here we've done against some of these pin glazes. Now we're actually going to take some purple here. I'm going to do something like that in a few other spots. It's just going to register as a darker glaze. It's not even going to register as purple. But I have to keep reminding myself, just touch it. That's it. See how that's wandering down into that crevice there? Let's do a little more over here. Can you see that? There we go. Just like that. Sometimes you just have to thin it down even more. Now I'm going to go back to my more of a brownish mix here, and again we're just going to touch that and we let it do its own thing. It's a little scary. I know people want to have that super control over it. Here you're essentially letting the paint do its own thing. We got all this fur in here. We're doing the same there. We're just going to touch that in there. Here, I'm just going to scroll up, see if I missed any questions there. Oh, hey there, Blitz Minis. How's it going? Thanks. All right, so I'm going to scroll back down. Oh, hey there. Hey, Josh. Yeah, it's so much fun. I want to do some of my Cruel Sea ships, actually. Like this. I've done several vehicles entirely in oils. Not just oils for weathering, but like this for the entire thing. Now let's get back to our... This is the Payne's Gray here. We're just doing the same thing, turning that into a glaze there, and we're just going to touch it. Same thing here. See, look at that. How that just shot right down that arc. Gonna do that here too. The interesting thing is that the more of this, the white spirits you add to your oils, to do something like this, you're actually causing the paint to dry faster. It makes sense because what are you doing? You're taking darn near all the oils out of it. Yeah, see, we're just doing ourselves some. Gonna try some over here too. And all it takes is you just touch it to it. That's all you gotta do. But you gotta leave it. Here, let's do a little bit here. Now, this is a different situation because I wanted to be able to actually do some blending there. Now, I may or may not do the whole bloody axe thing. If you check out some of my other videos, and I'm going to link some other videos to this. I think I can do 2 screens where I can just have a nice little link at the end of it. So I'll try and link some other free folk videos in there for you. So all I'm going to do is grab one of the other ones that's completely not started here. So how long have we been doing? 36 minutes, and we spent a lot of time talking about other things. So I'm going to say about 25 minutes. We went from that, and we've already got this. Now again, I apologize for the shininess, but that's the power of what these things can do. They are really, they are just amazing. So we thin that down a little bit. We want to get a few dings and cuts in this shield here too. We might want to do a bit of weathering on that potentially. Up here, I need to restore a line here, and that's going to be real easy with, again, quick little panel. It's effectively a panel line wash. Where are we at here? Oops, sorry. So there's a million things that I have to try and keep track of here, guys. So if the miniature wanders off to the side, I apologize. That's pretty much when you're doing the live things, there's just way more to deal with than if you're just trying to do my usual recorded episodes. And let's get this a touch lighter here. So we are adding in a little bit of our white spirits just to help that flow a little bit. Now I've got to determine, is this going to be metal or is this going to be wood? And what the heck, on this guy, we'll say that these are metal here. And you can see I'm just letting that mix with the color that's already there. It saves me so much time because I didn't have to sit there and look for just the right color on a shelf somewhere, or mix the right color on the palette. I just said screw it, and I just put the paint on there and then mixed it up right there on the surface. Now you can even, this is fun too. So this is, can you even see that? That's like a 1 hair brush right there. That's all that's left of, okay, that's in a good spot, of an old Winsor Newton Series 7. It is absolutely useless for acrylics, but turns out it's perfect for oils. It is spectacular for oils because it's got a couple of hairs and no more, and that oil paint essentially acts like a conditioner and brings it back to life, which is pretty nifty. Pretty nifty. So here we got his shield now. And now I just can't overemphasize, the whole point of using oils is for multiple figures at the same time. I did just want to establish some basic principles on the oils first before diving into 3 or 4 or 5 of these all at the same time. Here, let's get down in there with some of our lighter color here. Again, trying to find ourselves metal wherever that's possible, because we've got so much of the free folk and they're all just in skins or leather armor. Yeah, looking for a place to put a few almost near sky type colors there, but we don't want it to be a full-scale sky earth type of thing. So I just wanted to put a little bit of that there. We'll get back to our little blending brush action here. Just let that blend in. I'm doing the same thing with that purple that's there. I also have another there. Just blend that all away. I'm going to do the same thing here. Right there. Another thing that I've noticed too with the oils, if you just kind of let them sit there, maybe, gosh, as little as 5 minutes, but even 15 or 20, they sort of settle in place. And when you do this, you can almost sort of buff them a little bit, and it takes away a little bit of the excess oil. So we're doing this thing now where we're just kind of smoothing out some of the rougher areas. Right here. And these number 8 rounds, I'll show you. Actually, I try to also put the link for these in the video description, so you can look for that. I just get them from Hobby Lobby. It's nothing fancy. You can see again, that paint is not even blended into the brush at all. I call it marbleizing. Here, let's get, yeah, this needed to be lighter over here too. I knew there was something I was forgetting over on this side. I knew there was something that needed to be done. Here, can you see that? We're going to just see if we can't throw in some whites of the eyes. A little bit of skin tone here. That eye, some skin tone. And a little bit of that lighter color. That's going to go into this beard there. And back to the helmet here. Now again, I follow the card art as much as I can. Just in case, well, that's what people want to match, and that way it lets me do tutorials for people that want to be able to have it look like what they see on the card art. Eventually, especially if I have more than one unit of something, well, maybe that's where I fool around with some different color schemes. So here I'm just going to plop that on there. And I think you know what's about to happen. We're going to take our blending brush here and do something like that. Now let's get over here into this green and that, I think it's called space purple. Not quite sure why. Well, that's Mecha Green and Space Pearl. So that's from the Mig Ammo Mecha line of paints. That's probably, I mean, as far as I can tell, that is why you have those type of names. See, we're adding again a little bit more of that green in there. And it's just a little bit of, sometimes it's a little bit of back and forth. Sometimes we lighten, sometimes we'll go back in and darken something. Let's see if we can't do another one of those little panel line washes there. Let's do some right here. We need to get a little more distinction between the shapes there. But again, you just have to be willing to let it do what it wants to do. Now let's get ourselves some more darks on the shield here. Hopefully that is where you can see it. And it has to be pretty thin because we've got ourselves a decent amount of thicker paints. So here is another one of those, a little bit of a panel glaze. Let's get that right here too. We need to define that more clearly. That got a little muddied up. So that is not too shabby for essentially maybe 40 minutes tops. Hey Gary, how's it going? How's the durability of the two? Well, I would say, now I use oils all the time on vehicles. I've played with them for years. I haven't noticed any difference. I would probably say that oils have a better durability because based on the fact that there's oil paintings that have been around for hundreds of years that were painted on canvas with homemade oil paints. And God knows what kind of chemicals they had to use to make those. So I would say ultimately oils might be the more durable because acrylics is just, it's just plastic after all. And I know people ask me all the time, so what's your favorite thing to use? Oh gosh, it was oils before my recent. Well, I had to do that foray into the contrast paints, and it was interesting and all that. And then I started going back to the oil paints, and I said, yeah, this is what I missed for so long. It would be my paint of choice versus any acrylic paint. That's not to say there's anything wrong with acrylic paints. Obviously, I've used those for almost 20 years of miniature painting. But this just lets me do far more of my own kind of thing. It lets me just chill out and relax more. Here, we're making a different kind of gray. We're taking some of this white into the Payne's gray. And we're thinking about some reflections here and there. We need to get some darker stuff here too. There. And in here. Because you can see it in the illustrations. There's plenty of dark in the armor, so we gotta make sure we include that. Can't all just be lighter colors. Again, a little more dark there. I'm gonna see if we can't, I don't even know if, well, you might be able to see it if I try and drop an eyeball on this guy. I think that is mostly on screen. Let's go right in here. And we have an eye. Hard as that is to believe. Let's get just a touch of reddishness in that beard, and let's get some reds elsewhere here. We have an awful lot of the browns built up and some of our blues and greens. They have had, oh gosh, I think it's maybe in a place where I can grab it later. It's a Italian M1340 tank that painted with oils, and I haven't even sealed it yet or anything like that. Just been dragging it around, and nothing's happened to it. It's, to me, oils just have they are actually super durable. So I'm just gonna try and find myself a few lighter highlights in here, like so. And then maybe we'll start to get into multiple figures at the same time. Just doing a little reflected light there. We've got some actual rivets in some places here. And like I said, the whole point is to let this just kind of blend and do its own thing. So we got a couple of rivets here. Now I can paint around those as long as there's no catarrh. Yeah, well, okay, so this is something to, all kidding aside, oil paint. Now, if it's going to take a day or two to dry, yeah, 2 days, 3 tops. I can't imagine it would take any longer than 3. You might want to either cover that up if you've got pets, and I'm just thinking pet here because that's the bane of my existence anytime we pet sit for somebody. It was the bane of existence when we had pets here, and that was with acrylics. So with oils, I would suggest find some way to guard them from hair and dust, because it'll be a magnet. It'll definitely be a dust magnet. Well, just like anything that's drying, and it has a little bit of adhesiveness to it. Here, let's get that edge there. I want to get me a little bit more of that purple in there. We have some. I want some more. It's only just going to register as gray, but it really does add to the depth, and it doesn't take very long. It's not like we're adding a whole bunch of time to the painting time here. Oh, and by the way, purple and green make you a really nice gray. When I was doing that gigantic Reaper 5-headed dragon, I basically kind of used just those 2 colors. It was mostly just purple and green, and mixed it together. It made mostly gray. Just trying to get myself a little blue in here, and just a few small touches of that. Now I might have to throw out some more of my, oh gosh, I'll have to look at the name of it. I really, names of colors always, I just wish it could be yellow ochre, burnt sienna. Just keep it simple. The pro acryls do that. They, for the most part, stick to kind of traditional color names, which is nice for an oldster like me that just likes their dear old paint names. I don't need creative paint names. It just gets confusing. You can see I can just go around here and do some of that nice little soft blending, but let's throw some new yellow bone out here. And you can also, again, for the folks that didn't see it early on, you could see how that's just the consistency of miniature paint. acrylic miniature paint out of the tube, or whatever container it happens to be in. Now we've got ourselves some nice, potentially juicy highlight colors here. I need to thin these down a little bit though, because as I went to put that on there, it was like, hey, you forgot something. Forgot to thin me down. I need to get to the top of this here, and it's going to be with some broken highlights like that. That indicates the battle damage, or it's some imperfection and maybe the tooling of it. Yeah, see, that just gives us a nice bright highlight, something like what you're seeing on that shield there of our guy in the upper right hand corner there, a reference picture. We're going to get ourselves a little more, a couple more darks here, and that tone down. Now let's get ourselves some lights on our pelt here. And it's just amazing what a one hair brush, well, maybe there's two and a half. We'll split the difference. There's 2.5 hairs on this brush, and it's still doing some pretty darn amazing things. Really amazing. Yeah. Now I don't have any of the Morgul Knights. They're kind of packed away in a case. I meant to actually get some of those out. It's just been that long since I've been able to do a YouTube live on oil paints that those kind of got set aside for all of the acrylic stuff. But I'll be doing some more of these. I'm going to try and do, if possible, a couple of more. It's just I can't upload my regular recorded videos and do this at the same time. That's a little bit of that would be a bandwidth war. And both sides would lose. So we're just looking to get a few little really nice highlights here on our metals there, and you can see that it's definitely, there's a little bit of the magenta in some places. Here, let's get some stuff here and maybe even reinforce that one eye. Even a little bit on his cheekbone there. Now let's see if we can actually do something with that eye. So I'm trying to turn this upside down so you can see it here. Will you be those oils at Reapercon? Actually, I brought them last year. I'm bringing them again this year. I really hope that I can. The one limitation, though, is that it's got to go back home. So that I might just do those early on, because, well, we're going to be there starting Wednesday. But that might be more of a Thursday, Friday sort of a thing, so that they have at least Sunday, Monday, Tuesday to dry. So I think Saturday, maybe early Saturday, I could still mess around with the oils and still have it dry enough, at least enough to transport them back. I was actually thinking of just shipping a box of the oil paints, get another package of those Winsor Newtons, and just have them just sit there at the Reaper factory so I don't have to drag them back and forth with me or send them back and forth. Again, it's that set of 10 paints. It shouldn't be any more than 20 some odd bucks, maybe 28 bucks on the high side for 10 paints. And I think there's something like 17 mil. Let me look at these things here. Are they 20 something? 21 milliliter. Try buying any other set of 10 20 milliliter paints. Looking at you contrast paints. Yeah, okay, there's the comparison. Those 10 oil paints could still be around 10 years from now. And that was a grand total of $28. That actually was less than that. It was more like 25. Contrast paints, which some of them have already almost run out on me. To get the 11 of those cost me $94. It's and like I said, I've there's a couple of them that are on the verge of just running dry. I mean, they do neat things. They're not. It's not like they're bad. I'm not trying to rap out or nothing like that. But when you got a paint that's going to last you darn near the rest of your natural lifespan, and it costs one quarter, essentially, the price, that's significant. And it lets you do this kind of stuff. And you remember we're talking about capillary action. Well, this has the capillary action on this stuff again puts anything else to shame. Now we're just adding some little bits and bobs of that bluish color there. Oh, let's see. Will you be using oil as a repaint? Yeah, I definitely will be doing that. It'll be tricky. I don't think I got to use them last year because I ended up doing a really long airbrush demo, I think. Yeah, let's get ourselves another, get a little bit of this. There's a couple of these rivets, one here, another one there. And we need to, yeah, that's what I needed to do. But you can see it started out so messy, right? It just was unbelievable. It looked like a horrible mess. And now you just kind of get to kick back and relax. Just get to kick back and relax and just work here, a little bit there. You bring out some more highlights on some things. If you feel like it, you do some blending where you feel like it. There's just nothing quite like the oil paints. Here's our skulls, and again, these skulls are from Green Stuff World. And once again, we're going to take our little blending brush here. I just threw down some paint there. I'm trying to get this where you guys can all see it. And we're just going to blend this out. We got to clean off the brush a little. I think you can see it right there. Yeah. And that is now a nice smooth blend there. Now, I know with the skulls, there's the temptation to make them just that standard bone white, but they really do sort of age and darken, actually. That's really more what happens to them. Here, we'll drop in a few more lights here on some of these skulls, and we'll do the same thing. Same thing with our blending brush. It's funny, because I just caught myself rushing. I kind of threw down the brush, and I grabbed my blending brush. That's just so many years of working with acrylics, thinking, man, I better get to that fast. I didn't need to get to it that fast. It would have stayed plenty wet. Would have been just fine. Here, I'm gonna try and get myself some more action on this glove here. See if we can't make ourselves a little bit better. That's it. Get some separation between those areas. on the tassel or whatever that is that's coming off that helmet. I want to get a little more distinct shading on the beard and that sort of thing. We are gonna try and blend a few things here. And as I said earlier, the more times you touch the brush to the surface, you are going to pick up the paint that's already there, because this is all wet paint. Which means that's why I've got to stop, either clean the brush, get some new paint, something along those lines. Now let's compare that to, you can see some very similar coloration. Now this, even after just a few hours, this is already a little bit less on the shiny side here. Now I am going to go to my controls over here, and I'm going to cut down on the brightness a little bit. There we go. I usually have the brightness turned up in those early stages. Because we're just throwing on those dark colors and everything gets really dark. So again, we're just going to soften some of these things, blend some of this together. Now I need to get me some more of my purple in here too. Although I've also got to consider potentially I'm going to be having the blood effects on here. So how much do I really want to get crazy over that sword blade, or his axe, sorry, not sword. Been painting swords all day, so that's kind of on the brain. Once again, take our blending brush here, clean that off. Get this where you can see it. And we're just going to see if we can blend that nice and smooth. And you can see it picked up some paint. Definitely picked up some paint there. Now even here, it's not just on, say, armor and cloaks and that way, even on the fur and such, we can do the same kind of blending there. So again, using the Mig Ammo Oilbrushers. What I'll do is I think I'll take you to their site real quick, so you get to kind of see what they look like. So here we go, headed off to the Mig Ammo site, and we go to the oil brushers. So what are we looking at? There's these sets of 3. You can get them individually. They also come in these 20 color sets. So 58 euros, what is that? 64, 65, maybe $67, $68, something like that. That's 20 of them. That's not too shabby. Not too shabby at all. And now you can get the individual ones on Amazon. Like I said, I'll try and put that link in the description for you. They tend to be $5, $6 a piece, but you also don't have, there's no shipping cost, and you're going to have them in a couple of days. Obviously, shipping from Spain is going to take a little bit longer. Here, I can see that I'm going to get a little more action in on those metals right there. I also want to see if I can do some more. Here, let's get some of this yellow ochre in play there. That's a little too much of the white. Let's get more of the yellow ochre. We can just get some of that onto the mustache, the beard. There we go. Maybe even a little bit on the shield here. Now I want to get some actual green here. So I'm going to take some of that yellow, ochre. We'll mix it with our mecha green. Now we got a regular green. And we'll put that in some other places here. I did this a lot with my other Free Folk, my Savage Giants. That's some other YouTube videos that I did. So for folks that are new to the channel here, you do the subscribe thing and you'll get not only notifications for these, but you can peruse the Song of Ice and Fire miniature video selection. I think there's about, oh gosh. Now some of them are Patreon videos, I will say that, but I've done, if you include the live sessions, gosh, maybe 40 plus Song of Ice and Fire painting videos. Eventually there will be battle reports, but that's just going to have to wait until after ReaperCon. Oh, I'm going to look at the chat here. Sorry about that. I got kind of covered up by my controls. And I'm just going to get some kind of interest here on these boots. Because they've kind of, I don't want to say neglected, but let's get some of this green over here. And the whole idea that the green is that we're going to be doing those snow effects. And I will bring out the, just a second there. Here we go. So Cave Dweller Savages, you're going to see snow like this. And this is actually another video that I did. So you see we've got our blood effects there. Down into that snow. So you can check that out too. Like I said, there's plenty of Song of Fire and Ice content. Or Song of Ice and Fire. Sorry. Again, tired. Very long day. Pretty much been up almost 24 hours at this point. So you just have to forgive any vocal faux pas. Working in some lighter stuff on the fur every so often, not everywhere. Don't want to highlight that equally. Let's see if we can't get ourselves a bit of a wash right there. That's it. Teeth weren't really distinguished from everything else at all. Here, let's do that again. We've got a lot of cracks in our skulls here, and we're just going to see if we can get some capillary action to do that instead of having to paint it all down in there. Once again, we are going to use some of that red clay, or red, I think it's called, clay earth. I think that's what it's called. There. We needed to get a little bit of distinction for a little bit of red. We got so much of the tans and everything else working. We needed something else. And we're going to blend this again with our blending brush. Boom, like so, using the colors that are already there. I don't even think you can see this belt right here, but let's do it anyway. And that's wet oil over wet oil, but because it's so thin, the paint is so thin down, covered it no problem whatsoever. Not an issue. Now, if you're interested in the new Baratheons, which are, I would guess that they are available, or about to be available for regular sale. I've got some videos on those. I've got a live session. That was actually my last live session I did. And I've got the Patreon Army Painting Series that's going on. And that blog address that you see that's wandering across the bottom of the screen right there, you may want to give that a little check out, because that's got hundreds of thousands of how-to articles on it. Terrain, basing, sculpting. It's all pretty much there. Now they're not videos, they're just pictures and words. But there's nothing wrong with just words and pictures. Now I'm gonna try and get myself a little bit of some darks again into the helmet. Here we got plenty of middle tones in there. Gonna get ourselves some darks here on the armor. And okay, shield time. Here, let's grab some of this brown. I'll just mark a few things on the back of the shield here. Hopefully you can see that. Yeah, so just a couple of vertical lines there. Make that have a bit of difference. And then strap of the shield, some on his glove. That's the other nice thing about the oils, is you can sort of get down into those recess and trouble areas a little bit easier, because see, I can just sort of blend this now. Instead of having to try and do a whole bunch of layers there, we kind of just threw a couple of colors on it, and then we just blended it with our blending brush. Another area where time savings can be found. So let's go back to where we were not very long ago. That's what we had. That's what we started out with. And now we've got this with our metals. We've got the face painted on there. And again, the shininess it cuts down on what you can necessarily see just here in the live session. But what I will have once it's actually published officially, and I can go in there and put basically a cover image on this. And I can also obviously do something on the blog for it. So let's add a little bit of dark here. We've got our blending brush again. And I just work that right in. Now I'm going to get some of that lighter color here. This is the yellow bone, I think it's called. Yep, that's what it's called. Throw a little of that out there again. And there's a few little highlight things I wanted to do. Yeah, here we go. I want to do this. Hopefully that's on the screen. There we go, just to get that little bit of a chip taken out of it. Here, let's get ourselves some a few highlights up here too. And I think we need, oh yeah, we need to get some reflections too on that helmet, even of the tassel where possible. So we've got that pretty well in order. I'll just throw a few little lights on the feathers here, just sort of going with that generic eagle feather look. And remember just what a mess this was, and well, now you're going to be reminded in a second, because we're going to grab another one. Grab another one here, and we'll get started on that. So let's grab maybe this fine guy right here. So we're going to go back to our, here we go, start to wind up some darker colors here like we did before. Again, we're just thinning these down a little bit, not anywhere near as much as I had done in the past. And this is a bit of a review right here. And I'm just going to get down in here. The camera's going to shake a little bit, and I apologize for that. This is another reason why I use these number 8 rounds, because as you can see, this is a somewhat vigorous process. And this is exactly how that other figure started out. Now I'm going to get a little bit of the shield here, some of the metal surfaces. You can see we started in with some of the Payne's gray. That's basically a dark bluish black. Now let's do a little more. You can see we're just really focusing on getting this down into those crevices. I'm going to go with a little bit more of a brown here. Here we're even going to let it almost be a bit on the yellow ochre side. So for those of you that are familiar with how I had approached this in other videos, sorry if that's starting to slide away from the palette cam. I used to basically almost mix up kind of a wash, go over the top of it, and then remove it with my makeup sponges. Now we're just, see, it's almost getting to be a little bit green right there. And here, just going to get rid of any of the white primer. And again, the primer, and I'll show you in a second here, is just right here. Badger Stino Res. I can, if you want me to, I can even include a link to the priming video in the description. I don't want to put too many video links in the description because it might get a little confusing. But yeah, I did a whole video on just how I prime the figures. So let's do a quick comparison here. So here's our figure with all our purples and everything else. And this is what we just did. We just slapped some of this stuff on. So the idea is we're going to try and get this guy here more to what we did there. But I'm going to find one more guy here. Yeah. And we're just going to, I want to get him set up the same way. And you can see there's just minimal thinning by comparison. So we're just dropping in this Payne's gray right here. It's again thinned down, but not quite as thinned down. Back to my brownish color here. And I showed you that other one just to show you that, okay, you have a mess like this, and not a very long time, it becomes this. You just have to, know, okay, yeah, that's how it's going to eventually turn out. You have to live with the, oh my gosh, it really doesn't look like anything stage. Because as you can check back on the chat, things happened really quick from those opening stages where we were just slapping things on like this. Yeah, I'm even going to impart a little bit of red there. And the idea is that when I start taking those lighter colors and mixing it in here, you'll see actually a little bit of a reddish tint there. Okay, so we got that nice and quick, down and dirty. So now we're going to add some of these purples and sky blues and greens, tans. We're going to add all that to this guy now. Let's get down to it. Yeah, let's start with some of... Yeah, let's grab ourselves a different one that's a little bit less battered and beat up. That's better. And I'm also going to just throw a little bit of my white spirits in there, and now here we go. You can see how it starts to pick up the paint that's already there. Now, I think you can see some of that is dirty on the brush. You'll really see it here. See how much of the dirt that's picked up? Well, that is kind of part of the plan, because we're doing a little bit of our initial blending already. We're trying to take advantage, again, of what's already there. Now let's grab some of this blue. And you can see we don't mix very much on the palette. The idea is this is where you mix. You mix on the figure itself. We'll go back to our blending brush here. Just going to make this where you can see it. And now you can see we're already starting to get a nice feathered look to this, but you have to clean that brush every so often. And by clean, I mean just kind of take your hand and kind of squeegee the paint out of it. We are going to dive into some of our lighter colors here, and this is, again, this is very different from standard miniature painting. So we're just going to pop in these lighter colors. It almost looks very just kind of hit or miss, but remember our blending brush here. So we got this horrible brush stroke right here. Well, this is what we're going to do with it. I'm going to take that and we're going to blend that in real nice into the colors that are already here. I'm going to do the same thing here. This is what makes oils just a fantastic medium for getting things working nice and fast. And it works well on larger figures too. Imagine you got some big old dragon or something like that, and you want to get some nice smooth blends on the wings or whatever. That's a fantastic way to get that process started. Now here I have to thin it down because, as I mentioned early on, the miniature will tell you, it'll remind you that thinner paint sticks to thicker paint and vice versa. Thin on thin, thick on thick, not going to work for you. It's just not going to do the job. And like I said, you put your paint down. You get your blending brush here. And you just pull this down. It's a bit of a scumbling action there. It's an acquired skill, I guess if you want to say that. You get used to doing it. Now let's go crazy here with some of this nice bluish purple here. I think that's a little better now. So now it's gonna register as gray for the most part here. As a touch of reflected light. But you can see I didn't do a whole lot of mixing on the palette. That's where your time savings are, or is, as the case may be. Because we lay that down. Again, take our brush here. We got those horrible lines until they are completely buffed away. We clean that brush. We do it again. Once more. Now we've been doing a lot of metal stuff. Let's, what the heck, let's do this, whatever this is, some kind of a hide here, I would assume again. And let's get a little bit of this reddish color in there. Almost like a terracotta. You're gonna lighten that up, and we're gonna do the same thing. It's not just for the shield. Here, let's get ourselves a nice light. Didn't really mix this at all. Just gonna plop this on here. I'm gonna plop a whole bunch of colors on here. And then we're gonna take some green in here. Gonna do all this crazy stuff. What in the world did he just do? What the heck just happened? Well, we're setting up some more fun blending exercises here. Because that is the plan. And look at that. Now we're getting the lights. Look at that. It's starting to turn green in some areas. All of that color variation in there. And all I did was what? Just slapped some different colors down there. And then I just blended them all together. It can be that simple. You know, you do have to give it a little bit of pre-planning and some thought. Now let's reflect some of that here. But the nice thing is see, it's blending with the colors that are already there. So see, there's that hint of the yellow now reflected onto that. What's dangerous here is that, you know, I had to do, well, June and July were supposed to be oil painting months, and they turn into contrast months because, well, reasons. And now we're doing the oils here, and oh my goodness, you're gonna have to pry these out of my hand. Now I'm gonna add some of this bluish purple here into my skin color. Yeah, that's nifty. Let's do something right here. Is that okay? Good. That's on screen. Yeah, that's a fun color there. And look at how it's just blending in with that brown that's already on there. Look at these, all of these transitions we're getting. It's pretty much zero effort. I mean, it's like effort-free painting. You don't have to kill yourself here. Yeah, see, look at this. We're just gonna get lighter. You know, oh, let's do some more wet blending over here. Oh, what the heck? Let's throw in some of this over here, and even that starts to blend in with what's there. Oh, and yeah, let's do that here. On this fur, it's blending in with what's underneath. And remember, we did those little pin glazes to restore some of the shadows there. We can do that too. It really is just such a utilitarian way to paint. You can see why I've done this with large figures too. I've got some on the Patreon page, did some 75mm stuff. I'm doing Big Chalk Creatives figures too. Yeah, here let's go back to, let's get a little more of that purple in there. Oh yeah, that is a nifty little color right there. And let's just start to hammer some of this in. And let's do our little blending exercise again. We're just gonna randomly just blammo some colors on here. It looks like we just completely went we just went nuts there. Well, we didn't go so nuts. We're crazy like a fox because we're just going to blend all this together. Let all that stuff blend. Now, let us go back into some of our bluish color here. We got some armor plates to deal with over here. And I think, well, I can't see it. It's kind of blocked from my field of vision, but I think the one piece of art, I think we're pretty similar to the color that the art shows. And it is just unbelievable what the oil is going to let you do. Do some of that. I love painting scale mail. It's one of my favorites. The Baratheons, yes. There was tons of scale mail on those. That's another Patreon series that I've got going. Now that army painting series I'm talking about, it's $15 a month, and well, you immediately get, oh good grief, I think it's more close to 200 hours of videos, and they're links that I send you to your Patreon email. And we're gonna do some blending again. See, right over here on this shoulder piece here, just like that. And over here, let's get some lighter colors on his helmet here. I am thinning that down a bit. And that's letting me cover over that thicker paint that we started with. Here, let's just get some lighter colors in here real quick. Oh, let's do something here on this axe. So again, we are going to find our blending brush here. That's better. A little tough for me to see, but I think it's easier for you. Look at that. Just it smooths itself out. It's amazing. We've got more of these. Oh, I'm guessing some form of tusks here. Some form of little tusks. And like over here. Okay, this is a good example. I just plop a few dabs of the paint there, and then we're just going to blend that in. It's so much easier than trying to reach my hand in there and try and get at all that stuff. So much easier. We're going to get in on this axe here to a few lighter areas now. Drop down some of those lighter colors. Now, there we go. See this big old nasty line we've got here? Well, that is now, that's taken away. I'm just going to buff this out. And we've got our purple here that we like so much. That we like to include in things like this. And on the helmet. And on the armor here. So again, that shield, it took no time at all to get all these nifty reflections going. Working on some of the fur and the pelts here. Gotta thin it down though. I noticed right away all of a sudden, that's not really sticking on there, and that's your sign. Here's your sign. It always looks easy when people showing, and then she said go buy a handful of colors and try it. Well, yeah, I was a kid and I'm watching the Bill Alexander, well, and now you got Bob Ross and that sort of thing. They're doing their stuff with the happy trees and the happy houses and the mountains and all that, and using the palette knife, and you go to do it and it really looks like somebody who had maybe had some kind of episode tried doing that, some sort of weird, like you just got hit in the head with a baseball bat several times and then tried to paint. Well, yeah, that's because they probably did that same painting 1,000 times. That's what they had to tell me, because I would get really frustrated. Of course, I was like 11 years old at the time, maybe 9. I'm pretty sure I did my first oil painting when I was 12-ish, maybe 11. So I've been around these for a while. Actually, well, I had been away from them for many years, for decades. And it was so nice to get them back. That's for sure. Yeah, let's get a little bit of this purple in the fur colors here, and a little bit on that part of the axe. Here, let's get some colors on these skulls here. I may throw out some of that yellow bone again to just get something to work with my lights here. So you can see it starts to happen pretty darn quick. And again, we thin that paint down. And we can start doing some more individual lines here to show some of the wood grain. But as always, you can use smaller brushes. Don't have to only use the big brushes. So let's get some of our yellow bone back out here. Oh, if you're wondering what this is, it's just parchment paper on cardboard. Oh, sorry, that's been wandering off. There. I was thinking about taping that down. How much time can you let that paint sit and still blend? Now, me doing all of this thinning, all of this, the white spirits that I add, that is subtracting drying time. So potentially, within 24 hours, a bunch of this could be dry. It could still be workable, especially where the paint is thicker. Maybe this time tomorrow night I could still mess around. Well, heck, I could try and do a live session, if possible. It depends on uploading and that sort of stuff. But maybe I try and do one, and we'll see just how wet some of this stuff is. Here we go. Now let's do a couple of those, as I like to call them now, just pin glazes. Now where the paint is thickest, it could take a couple of days to dry completely. Now, I suppose if you put it in some kind of a container and there's not much air getting to it, that could retard the drying time. Now we're going to do again a couple of these little glaze type things right here. So see that? Again, it's just, you have to just kind of leave it go. Put it there. You just have to let it do its thing. You can't push that around. You just got to let it go. I know it can be scary, but you want that capillary action. You've got to let it do its capillary action. And that just means sometimes putting it there and then letting it go. We're going to get some of that Payne's gray in here too. Here again. You touch it and let it go. Touch it there, let it go. And go back to some of the brown here. Touch it, let it go. Look at that, I just sucked that paint right down into that crevice there. Let's see what it'll do here, right around his neck. Yep, same thing there. But you saw I wasn't trying to do any kind of a brush stroke there. I just basically let it sit there. And you do have to think about gravity here, although oils can kind of defy gravity a bit. Now all of a sudden we've restored some of the darks. Yeah, never sleep. Oh my gosh. Maybe after ReaperCon. Probably ain't gonna be sleeping much at ReaperCon. I know I didn't last year, because we were in that Fort Wappel area. There were demos going on, well, as close to round the clock as you could get, I would say. And let's get a bit more into his fur on his pelts and cloak, whatever. Here, let's get a few. You can see there's always, so I always leave myself a little more space to go. Even here on his shield. And you can see we've got some of those broken highlights where it's not perfectly, they're interrupted. Definitely want that. It just indicates either some kind of imperfections or some kind of battle damage. Now I'm going to get into that Mecha green again. That's the Mig Ammo Oilbrusher. Where are we at here? Oh, let's move this down a bit. Let's get some of that over here. I'm gonna get to some of my purple here. And we'll find our blending brush over here. Make sure we got that somewhat clean up, and then we do a little bit of blending. Just because. Let's see, anywhere else? Now let's get a little more of this sort of magenta color. Work that in a few places here. Couple of the bits of scale mail maybe here. Heck, even on some parts of his jerkin here. Remember, color goes somewhere, it must go everywhere, so that's what we're doing. Now just going to find myself a few lighter areas and places here. There's some knuckles. Over here, some fingers. You see that starts to take shape. We've got belt over here. That definitely needs some more definition. These guys here, we're going to actually almost darken those down a touch, get them a little more on the yellow ochre side of things. I'm also going to grab my first guy here, and even now I can, the paint has definitely settled a little bit. It's only been drying for maybe 14 minutes or so. Yeah, somewhere in that area. Now, got this sort of almost a purple gray here. I'm looking at this, we need some more definition in here. There's just not very much. And this is the nifty thing about the oil, so you can just let that blend with what's already there. That's just to me, that's the fun part of it. Here, let's do a little bit more of his furs right there. Some action on that helmet. And where we've got some of our fresh off-white. Now the Mig Ammo Oilbrushers, they are designed to dry a little bit more quickly. So if you're using regular oil paints like the Winsor Newton stuff, that will take longer to dry. Minus whatever white spirits that you're adding to it, because that's going to change. It's going to change the drying time, inevitably. Because you have removed some of the oil. So it's just natural that it's going to take longer to dry. Now I'm going to go back to my Mecha Green over here, mix with some of that off-white. And we're back to some of these bits of scale mail right here. Just trying to move some of that around. Now let's get ourselves some kind of a skin type color in here too. We've got lots of dark brown in there. And reflect some of that up onto the helmet area here. Always keeping in mind that thick over thin, because you've seen me go thinner and thinner and thinner here, but there is a point where I actually have to go the other way. And as always, the miniature lets you know. When the paint doesn't stick to it anymore, that's the miniature saying, yeah, you want to thin that down, or the other way around. Miniature's always going to let you know. And yeah, we need a little more of our light over here. Let's grab that blending brush again. Work through some of this. Let's see if we can do a bit on the helmet here. I'm going to show you something in a second here. Yeah, let's blend those together. And the idea is, it's like this idea right here. So you can see how that's the same sort of blending that we did. There you go. That's the same kind of blending that we did. But on top of it are those almost kind of bright highlights that have a hard edge to them. That's in a way what I'm trying to set up here on that helmet. Now I'm going to get some of my lighter color back out here. Also going to take me a drink here of just some water real quick, so apologize for that. There we go. And I think I successfully remembered to move the mic out of the way, because nothing worse than the sound of somebody gulping something down some water. Let's get ourselves a little bit of a air. Some light work in here. Maybe a touch. Even lighter. And that was almost straight up oil brusher right there. That was really not thinned at all. And again, if that was regular oil paint, you would have to get in there and thin that down. Let's do just a little bit of upkeep here on these skulls. Once again, you can see how that's sort of blending on its own. And these are the skulls from Green Stuff World. So this is a combination of the Green Stuff World texture sheets, those skulls, lots of different products. Some of it's just cork, some of it's Sculpey. Here, let's get ourselves a touch more light colors here on these skulls where we can. I got these big old, they're more tusks than teeth. Now we've got to do some stuff on this leather here. I'm going to grab some of that purple again. Just going to throw ourselves a few quick little lights here. We can use our blending brush too. But we are also going to go back and make some green again. We're going to take that mecha green, mix it with the yellow ochre. And again, you say, what's with the green down here? Well, there's going to be all that snow. There's going to be that snow there. We want something that's a cooler color to reflect that snow. And that's why if you take a minute to watch that Savage Giant video, or any of the ones, the Shaggy Dog, any ones where there's snow, you can see I tried to think about that snow as I was painting the figure itself. Take that blending brush. We got this green over here, right in this area. I just want to blend that. Poof. It's just so easy. Let's do that on some of the paint we just threw down here. And you can see that is starting to mix with those initial layers of brown, like so. Now let's go back to our one-haired brush again. And what are we going to do? Let's do a couple of some of the fur here. Like we've done. Let's work in some lighter color up here in our helmet. Then I've got some of these smaller bits of the scale mail too. We got to do something on these. Just want to make sure you can actually see what I'm doing there. As long as you don't sip of the paint. Well, yeah, well, there was a little conversation with somebody on Facebook asking, well, are oils toxic, whatever. Well, whenever I teach an oil painting class, I tell people if you do that thing where you lick your brush, that's a habit you're gonna get out of. I have been painting for darn near close to 40 years, and I never once licked my brush. I was never compelled to do that. It's just not necessarily the grandest idea in the world. And I know a lot of people do that, but if you're going to use oils, well, that is a habit you're going to want to break immediately, because that's not going to be good for you. That will not end well at all. It's going to throw me some few lights over here, where we've got these some kind of tusks or pieces of bone. I'm just assuming tusks here. And I'm going to drag that brush along there, get a little bit of a highlight on that. I don't know how possible it's going to be for me to maybe get some whites in the eyes here. No, yeah, we're still able to do it. More so that you would be able to see what the heck I'm doing. Now, into some touches of skin color here. So as I said, the main reason why you're using the oils is to be painting a whole bunch of figures at once. We're only doing a couple of here. So for me, my goal would be just have all 12 figures of the unit all have some kind of paint on them all at once. And just do what you see me doing here on every single figure. Sometimes I'll have other figures going, like some monsters or whatever. Some vehicles too. Here, let's get ourselves... That's more like it. We need some of those bright, sort of reflective things going on in our helmet here. So some here too. And whenever I feel like I need to be able to go grab my blending brush, it's sitting over here. And we can just smooth some of these things out. So like I said, I'll try and do a couple of more of these. That's just, I think that just ended up on the floor there. Try and do a few more episodes if I can on your Thenn warriors here. Again, this is for those not familiar with it, Song of Ice and Fire miniatures game. It's really enjoy it. Figures are just so much fun. I've done the cavalry figures; those are amazing. Here we're just gonna start to introduce a little bit of greens in a few places. So I'll just grab a different one here for some blending. And there we go. And at a certain point, then you, just like we did with the other one, you start to slow down a little bit. You start to, again, this is where we're going to throw in some of that same green over here. Starts to make things a little more interesting. I'll blend that a bit. Like so. Doesn't have to be difficult. Here's our, again on the scale mail here, I'm looking to get a little separation. Some of these. Like so. A few lighter dots in some places. Get in here, we got some of the fur that we can highlight a touch more. And now we've got the shield that we haven't really touched in quite a while. Let's get ourselves this, basically a chip that was kind of taken out of it. Here, let's do some of our, a little bit of a minor sort of panel line wash type of a thing there. Let's get some green on the back of this too. Here's some of that green. Let's get a little more. There we go. Bit more right there. Well, thanks a lot, Mike. Michael, it's appreciate you hanging around. I know it's a late night sort of a deal. And eventually at some point, yes, I will even need sleep myself, heaven forbid. Look at that. It's so much fun to be able to take that brush in there. Cheers. I'll hopefully again, well, what is this? Basically Wednesday, maybe either Friday night do a live thing. Well, it'd be kind of the same time. I only have so many days before Reapercon hits. I'll try and do, if I can squeeze in 2 more, that would be fantastic. That would be ideal. You know, I might do some more on the, who knows, maybe even paint some of the Baratheons in oils. I'm going to let that just sit for a few seconds there, kind of dry out a little bit. But this is part of the army painting series here on the Baratheons. So these are the, you can see each of these bases individually, but then as part of the whole. And that was all part of the lesson there. You can see we drew out that pattern and then transferred it to the Sculpey like this. You can see some of the stag design in there. And then proceeded to do all that, the painting on the bases there. So that was all part of, again, that's series 12. So let's see what we've got here with our 2 guys. So again, that is none too shabby right there. And as I said, we can let these dry, paint over them with acrylics. We could start working on these again some point tomorrow. And they should still pretty much be, maybe not as wet as they are now, but pretty darn close to it. We're adding a little bit of reflected stuff here on that metal. Again, you got to reflect the environment around it. That's why those non-metallic sets, well, they call them non-metallic sets, but they're just a bunch of different blue grays and stuff. Well, that's fantastic depending on what the environment is around it, if that's what it is. But if it's not, that set is not going to do you much good. And unfortunately, just people say, well, I've got this non-metallic paint set, now I can paint non-metallic, and it usually ends up not quite working out the way they think it's going to. So speaking of sleep, I'm going to try and get myself some here. So thanks to First Last and Michael and Gary and Josh there and Rupe. I hope that's pronounced correctly there. Oh, and Blitz Minis too. I appreciate you guys hanging out here. And hopefully this gives you some food for thought here. And oil paints. Here, let's get that shield over there. Having some fun with oils. And if you want to, drop a like on this or something like that, that's always cool. And subscribe so you can find out when these are. Oh, hey, Trevor. Catch you later. Thanks, guys.